In this video, I'm going to make a little program that can convert from miles to kilometers. In your exercise, I think you're going to be converting from Fahrenheit to Celsius or the other way around. So I've created a Windows form application, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some text controls onto this, and when the user clicks a button, it's going to take the value out of the text box and convert it and then display it. So let's just get going here. I'm going to skip putting the changing the name on the top and putting the menu bar, but your program should have a nice name up here. It should have a menu bar with a file and an exit option, and it should have a help menu with an about option that brings up your name. But I'm assuming that you already know how to do that, so I'm just going to stick to the important stuff here. So I'm going to bring up the toolbox, and I'm going to add a text box to my form. There we go. And I'm going to need some words to the left so to describe what goes in this text box, and that's going to be a label. So I'm going to put a label right here. And where's my label? Oh, it's under all Windows forms. There we go. There we go. And I'll change the text on the label, and I'll call it miles. Oops. And I can go in here and I can change the font and make it bigger if I wanted to, or I could change the text color. But this is just sort of a mock-up. You can spend some time making yours look pretty. This is not really designed to look pretty. I'm just trying to show you the concept. So I'm going to add another label down here, and I'm going to call it kilometers or kilometers. There we go. So there's another label. And I'm going to add another text box. There we go. And I need a button on here that says to do the conversion. Okay. Oops, wrong button. There we go. And I'll call the button convert. There we go. And I'll just sort of shrink all this stuff up here, just kind of condense my interface a little bit. Now, let's make the output box read only. So, because you don't want the user to type stuff in there, you want to be able to put stuff in miles, but you don't want to be able to type into kilometers. So let's find the read only property for that text box and set it to false. So there's the set it to true. Excuse me. So now that box is read-only. See how it got grayed out there? That means you can't type in there. All right. So, you know what? Actually, I am going to change the text on my form because it's driving me crazy. There we go. All right. So now let's think about this interface just a little bit more. I have two text boxes. By default, they're given the name TextBox 1, TextBox 2. So if you go down here in the Properties window, you can see that the name of this one is TextBox 1 and TextBox 2. But that's okay, you know, for these small projects. But if you're doing a big interface, like if you're making an airline reservation system or some sort of point-of-sale checkout, you're going to have 100 checkboxes on this thing or 100 buttons, and you don't want to have to remember what is TextBox 1, TextBox 2, TextBox 3. That name is not very descriptive. So what I can do is I can go and I can change the name in the properties. So why don't I call this, I'm going to call this miles text box. And in the kilometers, oops, what did I just do there? I think I changed the name on the wrong one. So here's miles. Yeah, so this is miles text box, and then text box 2 will be I'll call it KM text box. There we go. So now I've renamed my text boxes to have names that are more descriptive than just text box 1 and text box 2. So that's just a good strategy to follow. Now let's go add some actual code to this. So I'll double click on my convert button. And that's going to create a function for me and take me to the code. So let me zoom in here a little bit. All right, so what do we need here? Well, when the button is clicked, what we want to do is get the text out of the miles text box and convert it to kilometers. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, let's think about these text boxes. Text boxes contain text, right? So text is just a string of characters with a null terminator on the end, right? So it's basically letters, right? Letters are not something we can do math with. So before we do anything to something that's in a text box, we have to first convert it to a number. So let's get the value out of the miles text box, right? Because we're converting from miles to kilometers. How do we get the value out of here? Well, we can just say string. I'm creating a string variable called miles, and I'm going to call it miles stir, so I know that this thing is a string. And so that's going to be miles text box dot text, right? I'm just going to get the whatever value the user typed in there. And now I've got a problem, right? How do I do some math on this thing if it's text? How do I convert it? Well, there's a class called convert, and what it will do is take in a variable of one type and convert it to a variable of another type. So if I take, let's see, convert, let me try this, okay. So what if I want to convert, I have to think about what data type I want to work with, right? If I want to work with integers, that's okay, but what if somebody types in, I want to convert 3.5 miles or 3.5 miles? Well, that's a floating point number. It's got a decimal point in it. So I'm going to use a double for this. A double is a number that has a decimal point in it. So I'm going to miles stir. There we go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a double, and I'll just call it miles. And what it is its value is going to be, we're going to take the string, the text, convert it to a double, and assign it to miles. So now what I've done is I've taken that text, I've converted it to a floating point number, an actual number with a decimal point, and I've assigned it to miles. Okay, now how do I convert miles to kilometers? Well, there's a well-known conversion for that. So, excuse me. So I'm going to declare another variable of type double, and I'll call it km, and it's going to equal miles times, and now I'm going to go to Google and I'm going to look up the number. It's like 1.6 something. There we go. So here it is on Google, and I'm just going to copy, I'm going to paste that down into my code here. Now, that will work. That is certainly fine. But I'm going to improve that in a little bit, as you'll see. That's stylistically, you just don't want to throw numbers in the middle of your code, because somebody coming along is going to be like, oh, I don't know what that number is. So now that we've got our kilometers, right? We've taken miles, we've multiplied it by our conversion factor, and now we have it. What do we do with it? Well, now we can put it in the text box for kilometers. So that's called kilometer text box dot text equals. Now you're going to see there's going to be some little problem here. Equals km. So why is this underlined? Well, it's because km is a double, right? It's a number with a decimal point in it, and the text box's text property is a string, right? It's text, right? You can't just assign a double number to text. So somehow you have to convert this to text. I could use the convert class, but there's kind of a sneaky, easy way to do this. I can just put double quotation marks and plus sign. So basically I'm saying by adding this double to a empty string, I'm converting this whole thing to a string. That's a kind of a sneaky shorthand way to do this. All right, so let's just test it out and see if it works. So here we go. I'm going to type in 100 miles and click convert. There we go. So that works. Awesome. I will show you some improvements in the next little video about this project, but you should have no problems. If you have any questions, please ask.